Guys, so let's work on exercise 2. For exercise 2, we have this figure, and in order to draw this figure, my strategy will be to make one sketch on this plane, and then to make another sketch on this plane, and then to extrude the two sketches, giving us this figure. So let's get right to it and see. We have our dimensions, and so let's start by um, making this drawing. Now, to make this drawing, we will need to sketch something like this with these dimensions. Let's get to it. So we'll make a new sketch and let's pick the top plane. So here we go. Um, let's start by making a let's make a rectangle with the dimension 120 by 100. So if you click the letter R on your keyboard to take you to the rectangle tool, and then we can specify that we want a height of 120 millimeters and we want a width of 100 millimeters. There we go. Okay, so the next step is that we want to draw a center line that is positioned 70 millimeters from this line. So let's click L for the line tool, and then let's select any arbitrary point around here. No, let's select this center line, and then let's pick any point around here. There we go. Now let's click the letter key on the key on the letter D on the keyboard for the dimension tool, and we can specify that we want the distance from here to here to be oh, no, we want the distance from here to here to be, you know what, I'm going to change this from a center line to a construction line to make it easier to dimension in this manner. So click letter D for the dimension tool. We select these two lines and we specify that the distance between them is 70 millimeters. Okay. Now the next step is that, let's see, we can draw a slot, a center to center slot like this, and the distance will be 60. So let's select the slot tool. Let's select center to center. So let's say from this point to, let's make it 60 millimeters. There we go. And then the width of the slot will be well, if you look at this image, you see that there's no specification for the width, but if you notice that for this slot, the width is the same as the diameter of this semicircle, right? And so if the radius is 15, it means that the width or the diameter for this circle or this slot is 30 millimeters. So let's come back here and let's specify that the width is 30. There we go. Or we can dimension this guy instead and say the radius is 15. The next thing we want to do is we want to dimension this point to this point as 30 millimeters. So from here to here is 30. Okay. We have this blued out, so you can see that that has not been properly dimensioned. That's why we can move this around, and that's why this line is shaded blue. So let's fix that. It's the dimension here is 60, so we should select the dimension tool, and then this point to this point should be registered as 60. There we go. Okay, now you can see that it's been blacked out. Now let's use the fillet tool to curve out these 2 points, and the radius we want is a radius of 30, right? So, right, 30. There we go. Okay, so okay. So we've successfully sketched out this portion of the figure. Let's finish our sketch. And now let's create our second sketch on this plane, right? So these are the dimensions that we're going to be using. So okay, so let me try to move things around so I can see this two screens simultaneously. Okay, so let's create a new sketch on okay, let's create a new sketch on, let me show the origin, yes, on this plane. Let's see. Right, so let me create a new sketch on this plane. There we go. Now for this sketch, we want for this sketch, let's focus on drawing just this portion of it, right? So we can start by well, there's several approaches that we can use here. I'm trying to figure out which one is the best. We can draw this figure to include this portion, or we can simply ignore this portion and draw just this part. Either scenario will work, but for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to ignore this portion and I'm going to draw just this portion, right? So let me start by drawing a rectangle from this point, and it will have a height of 30 millimeters and a width of 120, right? And then we can create a slot, and yeah, we can create a slot, and we can just draw it from here to here. The width or the distance between the two semicircles for this slot will be 80. Okay, and the radius of the semicircle will be 6. Okay, then the distance between the center of this semicircle and this point will be 30 minus 20, which will give us 10. So let's dimension that real quick. Dimension from here to here. Here to here. From here to here will give us 10. And we also want to specify that from this point to this point is 20. So let's grab this point and this point and specify 20. And then we also want to specify that oh, looks like we lost a dimension here, and the dimension of this one is 80. There we go. Okay, now what else? I think what we have to do now, okay, and I'm noticing something. The radius is 6, but what we have defined here is the diameter, right? So what we want instead is that we want this to have a diameter of 12 if the radius is 6. There we go. And now let's use the fillet tool to round off these two edges. And the radius for that will be 20. There we go. Okay, so with this, we can say that we have drawn this portion. Yes. Now, the rest of the exercise becomes very simple because with these two sketches, all we need to do now is to extrude. So, according to this exercise, we want to extrude for a distance of 20 millimeters on this plane, and we want to extrude for a thickness of 20 millimeters on this plane. So let's get started with this one. Let's select the extrude tool, and we can select this part of the figure, and we can extrude for a distance of 20 millimeters, but we want to go in the other direction. There we go. And now the next thing we want to do is we want to extrude this part of the figure in this direction for 20 millimeters. And so we can select the extrude tool, select this part of the figure, and extrude for 20 millimeters. There we go. Now we've completed this figure. You can see it's the same thing with all of the correct dimensions. So here we go.